Hey everybody, and welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to cover an in-depth guide on how to flick shot in Apex Legends. Just a quick note for everyone watching, you can be really strong mechanically, but you always need to have good game sense and always have the urge for better positioning and not to obsess too heavily on your aim if you're essentially lacking in other parts of the very important equation to improve as an overall player. This will mostly cover PC, but the concept can be applied to console in terms of overall mindset and steps you can take to improve, such as high sense, stick grips, practice, and overall location of where to practice. So just to cover the mindset, a flick shot is a tool within your skill set, such as a pop shot, leading shot, hard scope, or anything of that nature, but today it's a flick shot. It could be known as a flick shot, drag shot, a snap, flick of the wrist, anything along those lines. If you cannot aim and get better positioning, you will be punished as your toolkit really has nothing else besides this. So it's always important to remember tracking and awareness as well as you're learning and improving. Remember to note as you practice your flick shot that flick shotting over and over and over again is not the most efficient way to aim, especially if you have a machine gun. As you can see in this example from Battlefield, I try to predict the location and adjust the aim to where the target ended up. The fastest, most effective way to get a kill is to have the shot lined up before any of this is really needed. It's a tool, and be careful not to rely on it too heavily, or you're also going to tire yourself out as well when you're in a gunfight. Again, seconds matter. You need to be able to counter with a flick shot. This is why this technique is utilized. Real quick to cover some of the settings to help you improve your base flick shot technique. A flick shot is essentially, I hate using the word, but muscle memory, and not really a shot you think about. If you miss a flick shot, it's because you're overthinking it or you're not comfortable in the space in which you're aiming. So some quick food for thought. A high or low sensitivity is really not going to matter here. What matters most is comfort. A flick can be a wide movement or a smaller one. Personally, I did run a high sensitivity a long time ago, and I found it was way harder for me to be consistent. I usually cramped up in my hand, got tense when it was too cold, my shot was off. My arm just felt overall more consistent, which is why I run personally a lower sensitivity when it comes to time and practice. There's really no right or wrong here though. Running a higher sense can give you a faster speed also, if that's what you find comfortable. For gear, in terms of mouse, controller, or mouse pad, let's talk about them. A heavier mouse is going to mean more friction and require more movement to move the mouse naturally. I use the example of the G502, 503, forget the number right offhand. A lighter mouse is going to be the opposite. So find the sweet spot for you. Everyone is going to have their own personal mouse choice, so there's no right or wrong. I talk about grip style in other videos, and also put together a video on my own personal mouse journey, because there is no right or wrong on the mouse. You just got to find what works best personally for you, especially when you're flick shotting and you're trying to build momentum and stop. Now we're on the topic of stopping and starting. Mouse pads really also depend on the user, but some really big tips I can give for preference: get as many surfaces to practice on as much as possible. Get one that's fast, get one that's slow, then go in the test range and flick. Just keep practicing your flick shots and see what comes more naturally, because perhaps a smoother surface is going to mess up your aim because you have a harder time stopping your mouse. Or maybe a slower mouse pad will help you stop the mouse and get that flick shot the way it should be. You can always practice to make something feel more at home, but my biggest tip, if you feel any sort of tension that leads to pain, do not, I repeat, do not keep doing it or practicing it. Find something that feels natural and relaxed. An example, when you use a low sensitivity, your forearms or your shoulders are going to have a lot more pain or tension. Now, if you use a higher sensitivity, your fingers and your hands are going to probably have more tension. Just don't hurt yourself. That's the most important thing here. Practice, but not to the point where you feel pain, right? Some other quick settings that can affect your flick shot is FOV. Having a low FOV is going to help you make those flick shots seem more impressive, because obviously it's out of frame, so it is a flick shot because you have to guess where the enemy is. This changes on how much of the screen you use, of course. If you have an FOV lower, again, it's going to be more cramped. You have to memorize that space. If you have a higher FOV, those flicks are going to appear much smaller. So try not to compare your flicks to somebody else unless they're on the exact same settings, mouse and mouse pad, because everyone's going to have something a little bit of in terms of a combination that helps them achieve their shot. You can have somebody with a low FOV and then put them on the same high FOV, and maybe that drag shot may not look as impressive. So it's just something to be mindful of. I put a video on this talking about field of view, but field of view, especially when you're flick shotting, can make something look more impressive or not as impressive. So be sure to check out that guide. In this video, I have an aspect ratio of 16:10 and 110 FOV. I'm doing this because I plan on putting on a different video later on Friday talking about 16:10 aspect ratio and how FOV may or may not help you. I want to see if it helps me, and that's why I'm doing it in this video. Remember to match your inches per 360 in terms of movement, because your overall movement within the space is going to remain the same. It may appear different on screen based on speed, but the space you occupy does not change. Again, I put a video on FOV, I'll put it in the description down below, but tinker with these settings and adjust what feels comfortable for you. So I hope digging into the mindset helps you decide on what to choose, because every person is different and will adjust differently. Now, for the practice of how you practice, we're going to utilize the test range and just literally use one of the target dummies just standing there. We will talk about flick shots with a wingman, mastiff, G7 at 3x, and longbow with a 6x. And you're going to see them on screen, and we're just going to kind of talk over them, and I'll flip-flop through the footage. Again, don't go too crazy flick shotting when you have your aim already centered or close to the target. Flick shots are not there to show off, but to make correction. But of course, when the correction is well done, it looks really cool. Now, let's find a consistent target, and we're going to do this for about maybe 5 to 10 minutes a day. You don't even have to go too crazy with this. You're going to start off slow, so you give your hand and body time to memorize the movement and space in which you're occupying. And you'll visually see the target, then obviously it's going to help. So don't keep it out of frame, keep it within frame. And then as you get better, move the target out of frame. Then change your field of view so you can see more of that. This is overall to help build consistency. Also, keep it consistent so you can see where the target is and also where you're standing, so the movement always remains the same. Also, to add, when you're starting off slow, as you begin to improve to go faster and faster, increase your speed. Get more comfortable with the space in which you're occupying, moving your mouse. The same thing can apply to controller. Memorize that movement in space. Note that the movement from the stock can really impact as you're moving, because you can practice this again while you're moving around the target. I initially recommend you practice it standing still, because that's going to give you the most memorization as you just begin your journey on practicing your flick shot. Remember, a flick shot is a way of reflex to kill, not as a means to use and constantly just keep flicking, because then that's just going to become tiresome. Building the foundation here is really, really important. As you see, we're going through the various guns, going through the different zooms, because even settings on Apex Legends, as the magnification gets higher, the sensitivity gets lower. You can change your hip fire to match the speed though, which I've covered in many other guides and tutorials. I'll put one in the description down below for inches per 360 so you understand the concept. Again, if you don't have a good base to practice, you're not really going to improve. But note, as you practice, it's all about fine-tuning and finding what magnification can feel best for you, what surface feels best, what mouse feels best. Practice with the wingman with no HCOG, then add a sight. Repeat the same for the mastiff. Repeat with the G7 and add a scope with the 3x. Then do the same for the longbow with the high magnification. And notice how those settings feel. Practice a flick shot from up, down, left, and right. Practice each and find where you're weakest and what to improve upon. You can always change your sensitivity settings if a scope aimed down sights feels way too slow. Then of course speed it up. If it's too fast, then you can slow it down a little bit as well. That also can help. But to recap, and additional things to remember: comfort, consistency, and practice. Again, I hope you guys found this guide helpful. If you did, be sure to leave a like. If you didn't, dislike. Hit me up in the comment section. Let's have a conversation and really talk about your flick shots. Got really impressive flick shot? Then let us know. Let us know what would work for you. But again, thank you guys so much for watching the video. If you enjoyed, I will see you guys next time.